Our creative corner today, two-color watercolor. We're making blue and white paintings that will remind you of the architect's blueprint, you know, those big, large, oversized, kind of inky prints. And so we are calling this blueprint art. Artist Laura Muir is here to share the suggestion for beginner watercolor artists, which I most definitely am in the beginner category. So if you are a beginner, this is a good project to tackle?
Yeah, it is. It's really good because you're just working with the negative space of the project, so it's not too involved with shading and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a good beginner project.
So I described it as, I called it, nicknamed it blueprint art, but there's a more sophisticated term.
Cyanotype is
Cyanotype
is another term, but blueprint is also a term that fits with that. Cyanotype is actually a photographic printing process, and the cyan, which means deep blue substance,
it's that
in
teal
Greek.
Color, right?
Yeah, it's a kind of a blue-green deep color, and that comes from the chemical process as it is exposed to UV rays. So that's what a cyanotype is, and it creates blueprints.
That's fancy, that's scientific. I just call it beautiful. I mean, we look at some of the examples in studio from an artistic perspective. What do you like about this design style?
I really love it because it gives you a really good focal point, but it also allows you to be creative with your paints. So you're taking something beautiful and natural from nature, and then you're creating a work of art that is interesting but also simplistic.
First of all, I'm tapping my toes. I'm giddy with excitement thinking that I could possibly do that. I don't know, still a little skeptical.
I think you can. I believe in you.
I'm relieved too because the shapes seem really simplistic. You're reaching for kind of large scale leaves or greenery, nature inspired, like you said.
Yes, definitely. So it's a lot easier to use larger shapes as a beginner for a project like this. The smaller details, the tiny twigs and things like that become more difficult to control the water.
Yes.
So definitely starting with like larger leaves, kind of like this plant that we have right here.
That's our inspiration.
This is our inspiration for today. So that's going to give you the good shapes that you want to use. Any kind of leaf really, or anything from nature that's not tiny, tiny.
What supplies do we need to get going on this?
So it's really simple. All you need are some watercolor paints. I've got little examples here.
These are the real deal. These are like, give me a palette and I'll squirt out a little puddle, right?
These are professional grade watercolor paints. I really like using liquid form watercolors, so not something that's already hardened in a pan, because you're able to mix it up with water. I've got a little example here of a really liquidy wash, and that's what we're going to be working with. So it's a lot easier to create that with liquid watercolor.
So I'm guessing with this quality material, you're going to get a rich tone, a real saturated kind of vibrant.
Yes, yes.
And could you, if you wanted to just try it, could you reach for that simple, cheapy watercolor
You
palette?
can, and you can definitely achieve this with a cheap, you know, art store watercolor pan. It's just more, you'll spend more time working the water into the pan to get a lot of liquid all at once, because with something like this, you're using a concentrated amount of paint versus water to get that really beautiful spread.
The pigment works in your advantage.
Yes, so actually investing in these really high quality pigments helps create this look, but you don't have to go there if you don't want to.
If you wanted to sample it out. I'm excited, show me, let's get painting.
Yeah, so I've got a couple examples here that are kind of...
this is where I pretend to be official. I pretend to be you, okay? I'm gonna do my best.
You're doing great. So we just need a watercolor brush. I really like the ones that hold a lot of water, but that come to a nice tip.
And how do you, I mean, the more dense the brush, the more water they hold?
Yes, the thicker the brush, the more dense. It will hold more water for a longer period of time. So the more you brush on the paper, it won't run out and skid across the paper. So we'll definitely be working with something like this, but there are other brushes, even these Hake brushes that you can use.
This looks like serious stuff.
Yeah, that will hold a lot of paint. So basically, to get started, you want to prep your surface. I actually have watercolor blocks here, which you can get at craft stores or online. Or you can take a piece of paper and tape it down, and that will help avoid rippling.
Stabilize it?
Yeah, to stabilize it. So, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take your inspiration piece and you're going to sketch it. So I have these examples here that I have pre-sketched, these leaf shapes. And after sketching it, you're gonna wanna go in and erase any lines that actually touch each other, because that's going to give you that seamless white space. And then—
Time for color?
Yeah, we're gonna throw some color on there. So we wanna get our brush wet. And we're gonna find...
Somebody told me you want a brush that holds a lot of water.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna get it wet, and we're just going to trace along these lines that we've drawn.
Oh, before you put any paint on it at all?
Before you put any paint. So I'll show you how fun this is. This is like magic.
This is how I let my 2-year-old paint.
I know, right?
Just with the water. You're
just
doing
with water.
great. You're doing great.
Look at how beautiful this looks. So once you have a good wet surface, you don't want it too puddly. You're gonna go in and grab a bunch of this concentrated color.
Have you put any water in the color?
I have. So I've mixed some water to this color. So you're not gonna use straight liquid paint.
Okay.
So I've pre-wet this. It's probably 75% water, 25% paint at this point, and you're going to really load up your brush.
And water down on the actual medium.
Yep, and then once your brush is loaded, you're going to go in right on the edge and watch this magic that happens.
I'm ready. Oh, there it goes.
So we need a little more paint. Hold on.
Oh, it just kind of melts, doesn't it?
And it will spread through that wet surface.
It's kind of doing the work for you. It's kind of leaking, eking.
Yes, so it will leak through there, and you can tilt your paper and help it spread. Yep, and you're gonna do that all the way around all of the
edges?
Wetted surface.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
You're just kind of dabbing it, really, and letting kind of gravity take over and the run of the water.
So why don't you give this a try?
Oh my gosh.
You can wet a surface here.
Okay, now how do you control, because it's light in some places, it's dark in some places, is that by chance, or are you kind of manipulating that?
I'm manipulating that. So what I'm doing is I'm using the water to move the paint. So once I have this surface all laid out with the paint, you can go back in with clean water, which is why we have 2 jars. We have our dirty water and our clean water. And you can go back in and splash on that, and that creates this fun like water movement.
Okay.
And then one of the really fun things that I like to do with this kind of art is add salt. And so I have some little kosher salt here. I like the size of crystallization that this does.
Okay, now I've heard of this. It gives it kind of the texture, right? The spackling effect.
So if you look here at these pieces and at the ones on display, there's some little starring that goes on. And this is from the application of salt. So once you've had the paint kind of absorb maybe 50% into the paper, you're gonna wanna just sprinkle the salt in some areas.
I remember crafting with my mom, and to get this effect, we take a toothbrush and splatter the peach toll paint all over our wood creatures. It's kind of that same idea, more sophisticated for sure, but with the salt to give it that granular effect. This is fun. This is really fun.
Yeah, and you can also use your clean water. Let me get a little brush here, and don't have it too soaking wet, but you can also go in and splatter clean water onto the painted surface, and it changes it.
Oh, I love it. Do you have to wipe off the salt?
Nope, you let the salt totally dissolve into the paint.
You made this so doable. Thank you so much. If you want to see some more examples of this type of art, or of your art in particular, you've got a new gallery launching on your website, right?
I do. I have a new collection. It's an abstract landscape collection that's on my website. It's lauramuirart.com.
I'll be sure and dial it up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
2-color watercolor blueprint art, as we're calling it here on the show today. Look for the tutorial on our website.